Jerry Springer made a career out of America's rawest, loudest instincts. Proof that what the public wants and what endures are rarely the same thing. Sidney Poitier didn't just act. He decided, deliberately and publicly, what kind of actor he would be, and held that line for 50 years. David McCallum spent decades working steadily, seriously, without fanfare. Longevity like that doesn't happen by accident. Kirstie Alley understood that in Hollywood, the public's attention is a gift and a trap. Whitney Houston had a voice the world agreed was extraordinary. What the world couldn't agree on was what she owed them in return for it. Norm Macdonald never chased approval. He was funny on his own terms, baffling to some, beloved by those who understood that the refusal to pander is its own kind of greatness. Picture New York City, 1973. A cramped apartment in Little Italy. A young actor sits alone, preparing for a role that almost no one believes he can pull off. He's been cast as a dying baseball player in a film called Bang the Drum Slowly. Not a gangster, not a street tough. Not the kind of character people automatically imagined when they looked at him. It was a quiet, tender performance, and almost nobody saw it. But one person did. Martin Scorsese. And what Scorsese saw wasn't just an actor. He saw someone willing to disappear entirely into another human being. That observation changed everything. What followed was not a smooth ascent. It was a series of crossroads, some chosen deliberately, some forced by circumstance. And the cumulative result of those decisions is one of the most scrutinized and celebrated careers in American film history. Robert De Niro was born on August 17, 1943, in the Greenwich Village neighborhood of Manhattan, the only child of two artists, painter Robert De Niro Sr. and poet and painter Virginia Admiral. His parents divorced when he was 2 years old, and he was raised primarily by his mother on the Lower East Side and in Little Italy. He was a shy, introverted child who earned the neighborhood nickname Bobby Milk for his pale complexion. He started acting in a local children's theater production of The Wizard of Oz at 10 years old. Whatever awkwardness he felt in daily life seemed to dissolve the moment he stepped into a character. He dropped out of high school to study acting seriously, first at the Stella Adler Conservatory, then with Lee Strasberg at the Actors Studio. These weren't casual enrollments, they were full commitments to a method, a philosophy about what acting was supposed to do. The method, in De Niro's hands, was never a gimmick. It was a way of finding the psychological and physical interior of a person, and then reporting back from inside that interior. He wasn't performing a character, he was becoming one. That distinction would define his reputation for the next 50 years. His early film work in the late 1960s and early 1970s was largely overlooked. He appeared in Brian De Palma films like Greetings and Hi, Mom. Low-budget, politically charged pictures that found small audiences but allowed him to experiment. He was learning in public, and the public mostly wasn't watching. That changed with Bang the Drum Slowly in 1973, and it changed decisively the following year when Mean Streets brought him and Scorsese together in a way that would reshape American cinema. Playing Johnny Boy, volatile, reckless, alive with danger, De Niro announced something to audiences that couldn't be unsaid. This man did not act safe. Then came the moment that defined the first act of his career and set the stage for every crossroads that followed. Francis Ford Coppola was casting The Godfather Part 2. He needed someone to play a young Vito Corleone, a character already immortalized by Marlon Brando. The casting itself was an act of audacity. De Niro's performance in that film didn't imitate Brando. It inhabited the same soul from a different direction, a different time, a different country. He won the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor in 1975. He was 31 years old. He had arrived. But what does a young actor do when he arrives that early, that decisively? The answer for De Niro was to immediately risk everything he had just built. Taxi Driver came out in 1976. Travis Bickle, paranoid, isolated, simmering with violence and grandiosity, was not a crowd-pleasing follow-up. He was a provocation. The film was directed by Scorsese, written by Paul Schrader, and it generated genuine controversy about the glamorization of violence. Jodie Foster, who played a child prostitute in the film, was only 12 years old. The movie was awarded the Palme d'Or at Cannes, but it also shook people. It was not a comfortable film. De Niro could have softened it. He didn't. Travis Bickle became one of the defining characters in American cinema, and his influence, for better and worse, is still being traced today. De Niro won his first Academy Award for Best Actor in 1981 for Raging Bull, playing real-life boxer Jake LaMotta. To prepare for that role, he trained extensively with LaMotta himself and became an amateur boxer of genuine competence. Then, to play the older, heavier version of LaMotta, he deliberately gained approximately 60 pounds. The physical transformation was extraordinary. But what made the performance more than a physical stunt was the psychological depth, the self-destructiveness, the jealousy, the punishing need for punishment. Scorsese, who had been battling serious personal and professional difficulties during this period, has said that making Raging Bull may have saved his life. For De Niro, it was another act of total immersion. By the early 1980s, De Niro had 2 Oscars, a body of work that serious critics were already calling remarkable, and the full attention of Hollywood. He could have coasted. He didn't coast. He took a role in The King of Comedy in 1982, playing Rupert Pupkin, a delusional, aspiring comedian who kidnaps a talk show host. The film was strange, unsettling, and commercially unsuccessful. Critics didn't know what to do with it. De Niro didn't seem to care. Decades later, The King of Comedy has been reappraised as one of the most prescient American films ever made about fame, delusion, and celebrity culture. Throughout the 1980s, De Niro continued to alternate between commercial films and challenging ones. Once Upon a Time in America, Brazil, The Mission, The Untouchables, in which he played Al Capone and swung a baseball bat into a man's skull at a dinner table in one of the most memorable scenes of the decade. Midnight Run, in 1988, showed an entirely different register. De Niro as a bounty hunter in a buddy road comedy, loose, funny, warm. Some critics who had watched him commit acts of seriousness for 15 years seemed genuinely surprised that he could be this relaxed on screen. The crossroads arrived again, decisively, in the 1990s. Goodfellas, released in 1990, reunited De Niro with Scorsese and solidified something. Jimmy Conway was not the protagonist of that story. Ray Liotta's Henry Hill was. But De Niro's presence gave the film its gravitational weight. It is on every shortlist of the greatest American films ever made. And then came Cape Fear in 1991, and Heat in 1995, and Casino in 1995. And each of those films added another layer to what had become a towering legacy. In Heat, director Michael Mann achieved something that had never happened before in a major American film. Al Pacino and Robert De Niro in the same scene, talking directly across a table from each other. It was treated as a cinematic event before the film was even released. The scene delivered. Two actors at the height of their powers, sizing each other up, each fully present. But the late 1990s brought a different kind of crossroads. De Niro began taking roles that were softer, broader, explicitly commercial. Analyze this in 1999. Playing a mob boss who goes to therapy with Billy Crystal was a significant tonal shift. It made a great deal of money. It also opened a door that some observers felt he walked through too easily in the years that followed. There were films that drew mild reviews and diminishing expectations. The question, asked openly in film criticism, was whether the man who had made Raging Bull and Taxi Driver had permanently shifted his priorities. It's a fair question, and De Niro has addressed it in various interviews over the years without extensive apology. He has spoken about the economics of filmmaking, about enjoying a broader range of work, about the difference between movies made for art and movies made for other reasons, and about his right to do both. He founded the Tribeca Film Festival in 2002, alongside Jane Rosenthal and Harvey Weinstein, in direct response to the September 11th attacks. The festival was explicitly designed to help revitalize Lower Manhattan's economy and cultural life. That decision to root a major cultural institution in a neighborhood he loved was not a commercial calculation. It was a civic one. His personal life has drawn substantial public attention over the decades. He has 6 children. His relationship with his father, the painter Robert De Niro Sr., was limited during his childhood. His father was gay and spent much of his life away from the family. But De Niro has spoken with evident affection about his father's work and the artistic world in which he grew up. He has been married twice, to actress Diane Abbott and to actress and producer Grace Hightower, and has been in a long-term relationship with Tiffany Chen, with whom he had his youngest child in 2023, when he was 79 years old. That fact is worth pausing on. In 2023, at 79, Robert De Niro became a father again. He also appeared publicly at the Cannes Film Festival to receive an honorary Palme d'Or. He was working, he was talking, he was present. Whatever the narrative of decline or coasting that had been applied to his career choices in the 2000s and 2010s, the man himself had not retreated. He had opinions. He expressed them. He showed up. He has been publicly outspoken in political terms over the last decade in ways that have made him a polarizing figure in some quarters. His criticisms of Donald Trump, delivered at the Tony Awards in 2018 and in numerous media appearances, were direct and profane and generated enormous reaction. Whether one agrees with those views or not, they represent something consistent in De Niro's public character. He does not perform neutrality. He is not interested in being liked by everyone. That is the same quality that made him spend months training as a boxer and gain 60 pounds for a movie. He commits. The question that critics and film scholars continue to wrestle with is what to make of the full arc. There are the undeniable masterworks: Taxi Driver, Raging Bull, The Godfather Part 2, Goodfellas, Heat, Once Upon a Time in America, the king of comedy. There are the commercial entertainments. There are the late career performances that have drawn genuine praise. His work in Silver Linings Playbook in 2012, for which he received a Best Supporting Actor nomination, reminded many viewers why he was considered one of the best to ever do it. His performance in The Irishman in 2019, again with Scorsese, a 3.5-hour epic about memory, regret, and the cost of a life lived in violence, was widely seen as among the finest work of his career. The Irishman is worth dwelling on for a moment. De Niro was 76 when it was released. He had been working with Scorsese on and off for nearly half a century. The film is saturated with mortality, with the weight of choices made and unmade, with the quiet devastation of men who cannot undo what they have done. Whether or not that film is autobiographical in any personal sense is something De Niro has not confirmed, and it would be unfair to presume. But watching it, there is the unmistakable feeling of an artist and his longtime collaborator reckoning seriously with time. Not as an obituary, as an argument about what a life means. At 81 years old, Robert De Niro is still working, still speaking, still founding things and attending festivals, and becoming a father. The biographical record does not add up to a simple story of a boy who wanted to act and became great. It adds up to a story about a man who repeatedly chose difficulty over comfort, depth over safety, and total commitment over self-protection, and who has occasionally, and without great remorse, chosen otherwise. That mix is what makes him interesting, not the Oscars, not the reputation. The pattern of the choices, all of them, across 8 decades. He walked into that cramped Little Italy apartment, a shy kid with a nickname that made him sound fragile. What came out the other side was anything but fragile. And whatever comes next, the ongoing fact of Robert De Niro, working, opinionated, complicated, alive, belongs fully to the present tense.